Um, so welcome to everyone who's here for tonight's session. Um, I will share my PowerPoint. I know you all love PowerPoint, but we're gonna go through and share this. Let's see. So a little bit of information about myself before we start. Tonight's presentation is about stress management. And I know we're in the time of year where we start to have midterms. Holidays can bring up a lot of family stuff, you know. So I think this is the perfect time to start talking about stress management. I know we talked about it some in our presentation a couple of weeks ago, and I try to mix it up a little bit because we have different individuals on at different times. And I know you have to attend two of these, so I try to mix them up a little bit. There might be some overlapping information, and I apologize, but I'm, trying to provide the best information that I can. So, my name is Jacqueline Salabai. Kiani Mishla, Tachi Bashish Chain, Kabaha Edish Chedo, Twitagini Edishanella, Kutsal San Shuan. I am originally from the Lower Greasewood area here in Arizona, and I am Diné, Navajo. But right now I am coming to you from Flagstaff, Arizona, and I have about 15 years experience as a social worker. I went to school at Northern Arizona University and then went to ASU, graduated, and I've been doing a lot of different work with community, just working with grants, working with community. And right now I work as a grantee technical assistant with a company who employs a majority of their employees are Indigenous. So a lot of the times I travel and I go out and I help different communities to either implement the gathering of Native American curriculum, which is a healing curriculum. So I do a lot of good work, and I love, love my job. So if you have any questions about social work, I welcome them. And you can email me about any questions that you might have. I'm coming off of like a cold or something. So if you see me having to stop a little bit, just don't mind me. um, but today's presentation, I really like to go into introduction. Now, I always explain this to everyone when I'm meeting with them that if we were to do this in person, we would do this more of like a GONA style approach. And if any of you have been in GONA, I just love the curriculum and I love everything about it. But usually we would come in and we would sit talking circle style, and we would see each other's face, and that's easiest way to sit, and that way we can see each other all around the room. And so for tonight's session, I'd like to invite you in and into the circle, and just imagine that we're sitting next to each other. I know this is a virtual session, but I'd like to create that atmosphere. And so moving into the presentation, I really like to establish ground rules and ground guidelines, so that way we can have a safe space. And so creating a safe space is making sure that each one of us is able to speak and we're able to share, and that none of the information will be used outside of this presentation or discussion. And so when I say that, I mean confidentiality, having respect for one another and not sharing that information out or using it against another person. And that's really important. No gossiping and no bashing of another person. And that's, part of the respect piece. The other part is, having respect when you're speaking or when someone else is speaking, making sure that they're getting their point across, and they've stated what they want to state. Sometimes individuals, we get excited and we want to speak, right? But making sure that we are aware of ourselves. That's part of, having that self-awareness and taking that inventory of who we are. If I get really excited and I want to speak, and maybe that's something that I need to work on. Um, and then just having respect for each other, no talking down on one another or judgments. We're all different. I'm not perfect, and I'm sure a lot of you aren't perfect, and we make um, some wrong decisions and we do some things that aren't good, and so having that um, compassionate approach and taking that compassionate approach to one another and saying, okay, they did this, they messed up. Yeah, okay, let's give them a chance to redeem themselves. So that's basically the ground rules for today's presentation. First off, I'd like to go into introductions, like a talking circle. I love to go around and hear where everyone's from and I talk about, what if you have a clan, sharing your clan. I know not all tribes have clans, but if you're able to share, I'd be appreciated. I mean, I would appreciate it. If you're not able to share your clan, that's okay. If you're not able to say it, that's okay. If you're not supposed to say it, and that's totally fine too. And then where is your homeland? I know some of us have historical instances where, our homeland is in a specific place and you're able to tell us, that's great. And if you are removed from your homeland, whether you have been experiencing, removal such as like foster care or whatnot, you can totally skip the question. That's totally fine. What college are you going to? That's really good information because I'll say it again, I say it every time, when you go to college, you meet people from all over the world. And when I went to college, I was like, yeah, I'm stuck in a small town. Okay, I'll go to this university. I'll probably never see these people again, right? Believe it or not, I ran into numerous people after I graduated or after I attended that class or that completed that degree program. So be aware of that. And if you make connections, grab an email address or a Facebook and stay in touch. Because if that person's in your same field, that might be beneficial for you in making those connections and networking. What do you want to be when you grow up? I always put that in there because, when I was in junior college, they used to call it junior college, community college. I didn't have any idea what I wanted to be. I was dealing with different things in my life and I was a new mom and became a single mom and I have no idea, no clue. And so when I finally moved into the university, I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do. But even when I graduated with my bachelor's, I was like, okay, I guess this sounds great, so I'm going to do it, right? And I think after that was when I was like, I guess I'll do this, And some of us have a good vision of where we're going because we have parents and grandparents who foster that vision, right? They show us and they guide us and they lead us. But some of us don't have that, and we don't have individuals telling us where and when and how to do it. And we have to figure it out on our own, right? So when I say what do you want to be when you grow up, what vision, what goals do you have for yourself in your career? And it could be something as simple as I want to be a good parent to provide for my children, and that's okay. And then your favorite Native movie, which I always enjoy. So I'll go first. My name, I already said my name. Did I say my name? Jacqueline Salabai. My clan, I just keep going and going and going. I forget what I say. I am a towering house born for red running into the River Clan, and my Chays are Edgewater, and my Nollies are Bitterwater. And I'm originally from Lower Greasewood, Arizona, and I went to college. I already told you that. And I think when I grow up, I still want to. I still have those visions. I'm still striving. I really want to do some sort of social justice leadership type of stuff. So I'm working on that next step because I cannot be stagnant in where I'm at. So I'm still trying to work on my vision and still trying to see like what is my next step? Where am I going? I love to do this and I would love to do that, but how do I do it? So, those visions and goals are still there for me. And then my favorite Native movie, um, I think it's still Smoke Signals because it's quoted like every single day. So, if you'd like to come off mute, I would encourage you all to introduce yourselves. I know we have a number of individuals, at least 31 individuals tonight. So if you want to introduce yourself in the chat, that is totally fine. You can put all of that information in the chat if you don't want to come off mute. Okay. So who would like to go first?
I can go first.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is King. I'm a Two-Spirited from Turtle Mountains, North Dakota. I'm a Ojibwe Cree clan, I guess. I'm still learning that aspect of my life. So it's a little bit interesting how my family and the dynamics work. So, my homeland is North Dakota, and I'm currently going to college right now. I'm a second year medical student at University of North Dakota School of Medicine. And what I want to be when I grow up is I'm planning on to specialize in rural general surgery to be able to practice in it's Devil's Lake, North Dakota, which is about 10 miles from Spirit Lake Nation. It's kind of where I want to establish my practice. And it's about an hour and a half away from my family, from my homeland. So, and I also my favorite movie. I was like, I could go into it, but I was like, I have to go back to Smoke Signals, and I was like, my age might be showing on that too. So,
Right.
that when I want a good laugh, that's the movie that I really enjoy. But I'm really glad that there's a lot more movies coming out showing the true history of what's going on. Um, but they're hard to watch. So like Indian Horse or Bones of Crow, new ones that are coming out that are probably going to be a lot more emotional to be able to get through. But I like that we're doing that finally. So
Yeah,
I'm
I
grateful to
agree.
be here. So
Mhm.
thanks for
Awesome.
letting me be
Thank you
here.
for being here. Yeah. Who else would like to go? Who would like to introduce themselves?
I can go next.
Okay, go ahead.
My name's Lomar Wonder in Medicine. I'm Northern Cheyenne. We don't have clans, but we have societies. And I come from the Dog Soldier Society and Elk Society. Um, my reservation is located in Lame Deer, Montana. And I'm in my senior year at SKC, or Salish Kootenai College, doing my bachelor's of social work. What I want to be when I grow up is I want to pursue my MSW. After I'm only 3 classes away, so I'm pretty close for my bachelor's. And my favorite movie is I would have to say Thunderheart.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you too.
Hmm. Who else would like to go?
I can go.
Go ahead.
Hello everyone. My name is Marcela Cruz. I am White Mountain Apache from the Fort Apache Indian Reservation, located 3.5 hours east of Phoenix. I am Iya, which is the Mesquite people, born for Bizaha, which is the Adobe Cut Riverbank people. I'm currently attending Sinta Glashka University, working on my master's in human services, and I'm also taking classes at St. Carlos Apache College / Tohono O'odham Community College. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I feel like I'm just going to be a lifelong learner, a lifelong student with no actual end game, just continue learning. And my favorite Native movie isn't really a movie and the cartoon, it's Disney, but you know, it was my first experience as really seeing another one, and you know, being represented, and that would be Pocahontas. You know, I know all the songs, so don't ask me to sing for you guys, but yeah, I know Colors by the Wind by heart. So
You'll be your entertainment on our intermission. Just kidding. Okay, awesome. Thank you for being here. Who else?
I'll go next.
Okay.
Pesia. My name is Sinpak Singh. I'm not sure if my people have a clan, but I'm from the Bitterroot Salish and then the Cuddly Speh. And I also have some Shoshone in me. My homeland is Missoula, Montana, but I also grew up on the Flathead Reservation, traveling around with family. I'm currently in my freshman year at the University of Hawaii. And when I grow up, I want to be a speaker, representing the land. My favorite Native movie would be Dreamcatcher.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for being here. All right, who's next? Who else would like to introduce themselves? I see a lot of introductions in the chat.
I can go next.
So make sure. Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Shauna Yazi, Tatsohi Nishle, Blashter Bashishchin, Kiani Deshache, Tatnazohi Deshanele. I am from Pinon, Arizona, located on the Navajo Nation. I'm currently at the University of California, Davis. I think what I most want when I grow up is just kind of like stability. And I didn't have that growing up. So just kind of being financially able to sustain any kind of livelihood that I guess I have when I'm in that time period of my life. And my favorite Native movie is The Fast Runner.
Nice. Thank you for being here. Alrighty, who's next? Okay, go
I
ahead.
can go next. Sorry, I can go next.
Go ahead.
My name is Lawrence Hunkpapa, Fort Yates, North Dakota. I'm attending Sitting Bull College. So I'm between either a horticulture therapist or a range management, either of those, and Dreamkeeper. That's probably my favorite movie.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing and thank you for being here. All right. Let's see. I see a hand up. Go ahead.
My name is Jerisha Lasky. I am from Oklahoma. My tribe is Seminole Nation of Oklahoma, and my clan is Alligator Clan. The college that I attend now is Thona Autumn, TOCC. And what I want to be when I grow up is I want to be a board certified behavioral analyst. And so currently I am finishing double majoring. And I'm also currently a registered behavioral tech. So I work with children who have autism. And so I would love to open up my own clinic specifically for Native Americans who have children who suffer with autism. And my favorite my favorite Native movie is Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. All right. Who else would like to share?
I could go next.
Okay, go ahead.
Hello. My name's Dan Wells. My clan is Bear Clan. My homeland is Red Lake Nation. I go to the Red Lake Nation College. What I want to be when I grew up was a firefighter, but I'm currently the adult protection advocate for Bimidawa Gadina Wimaganadug, formerly Family Children Services. So I guess I'm where the creator wants me to be. That's pretty much what I want to be when I want to grow up, is doing the creator's work, I guess. My favorite Native movie is Dance Me Outside.
Nice. Thank you for sharing. Awesome. Dance Me Outside. I was trying to remember the name of that movie. That's a good one too. Okay. Who else? Remember to take a look in the chat and read everyone's introduction. A lot of good information. Thank you for providing that information. Sharing that with your peers, getting to know each other. Anybody else like to introduce themselves? Anybody else? Okay. Well, it looks like we will move on. Just checking, making sure I don't have anyone else that I'm missing. Okay. Alrighty, let's move into stress. Okay, so how many of you, I'm sure all of you experience stress, right? Who can tell me what stress is? Somebody? Anybody? No?
Stress makes you uncomfortable
Stress makes you uncomfortable? Yes,
and
it does,
irritable.
right?
Stress
Exactly.
can be positive or negative, though. So you can have a positive stressor or a negative stressor. So stress is your response to a stimulation.
Yes, awesome. That's a good point. So stress is a state of worry or mental tension, which is caused by a difficult situation. So difficult situation can be interpreted in terms of whether it's good or bad for you, right? Because if it's causing stress, it could still be good for you, but it's causing you to have these reactions, right? And so it's a natural thing. Everyone goes through it. Our bodies are able to react and respond to stress in a lot of different ways. And it's basically prompting us to address a challenge and possibly a threat in our life. And so basically identifying the change that is happening or occurring, and your body's like, how do I deal with it, right? And so yes, and it can cause an increase in anxiety. And so when I talk about changes, you know, you're picking up on some of those changes that happen within you or within your body. And so a lot of the times they can become um, physical reactions. Of course, we experience those mental reactions, right? All those thoughts that are flooding our minds about, oh my goodness, what do I do? And you know, like all of these thoughts, and we could be scared, we could be excited, we could be all these different things, right? We could go into anxiety, we could go into depression, you know, and so some of the more common changes that we experience as a result of having stress are physical symptoms, right? I don't know about you, but you know, a lot of my stress I carry right here, right in my shoulder area, right here in my neck. And so when I get stressed and when I get tense, I tend to get really, I don't want to say, what do you call it? Like knots, you start feeling them and it gets like really hard right here. And it causes me to have, it goes up to my neck up here in my brainstem and I start to have, you know, migraines and headaches. And so that's a sign of stress. Other signs are changes in your appetite, right? Sometimes we're not hungry at all and we have a loss of appetite. Other times it could be like, I want everything that's in the fridge and I also want to go to the store and I also want to go to Panda Express and I also want to get a cake, you know? So it's like, whoa, calm down. What is happening here? A lot of the times when I get stressed, I notice that I turn to junk food and sweets. And so that's one of my red flags. And other kinds of reactions can include behaviors. Have you ever seen someone stressed out, right? Their behaviors really show like, hey, you need to calm down, you're stressed out, right? They can't focus. And so they're experiencing some of those anxiety, like, oh my gosh, you know, what's going to happen if I don't do this? And that point, that A is going to lead to B, and then B is going to lead to C, and C is going to lead to D. Oh my God, you know, and you build this big mountain out of something so small that you could like take a breather and come back to it. Easily angered, I like you said, you feel uncomfortable or you get you start to feel things. So one of the things is you get easily angered. This reminds me of a mom, or like my mom used to do this, and I do this sometimes, and I get snappy when I'm stressed out and the kids are like, mom, I want something to eat, mom, look at this, mom, and I'm like, stop, calm down, okay, I'm trying to focus, you know. And then that's when I know, like, whoa, okay, I'm feeling a little bit, you know, I have a time crunch or I have to get something done and I need to focus. And I'll go back like, okay, I'm sorry, I need to focus on this, can you just leave me alone for like 30 minutes? So that's one of the things that I've noticed. Sleep, I know it's hard sometimes with deadlines and you have your syllabus full of calendar deadlines and you have to focus on reading and you have to focus on quizzes and all, you know, all that good stuff. And so sometimes our minds are just constantly going after reading like 5 journals, and I'm like, my mind is just racing and racing and racing. And so that can cause us to have some sleepless nights. Feeling sad or guilty for being stressed. Worrying, I think that causes a lot of sadness too. Crying easily, crying. I know when I don't get sleep, as much sleep as I should, and that's probably when I'm stressed out, I get very emotional. And so I start to cry easy. So if you you know, if you're presenting like 4 days out of a week, and that last day you're just hitting that bottom and you're so stressed out, but you have to do another presentation, and it might come into like, oh my God, you know, I'm talking about language and I'm talking about empowering our people. And yes, that's an emotional thing, but you know, if you're breaking down crying, then that probably is indicating that I'm burning out. Like you said in the chat, experiencing burnout. Anxiety of the past. I know that stress can start to make you think about the past. It can make you think about, you know, the loss of loved ones. And sometimes we go down those dark holes that we shouldn't go into. And there's a concept called hooking, getting hooked. And so when you're experiencing stress, sometimes these thoughts and these emotions and feelings come to you, and sometimes they just stay there. They just kind of just stay there, like sadness and grief. When you're, say I'm stressed out and like today I have to do 2 reports, and you know, I'm constantly thinking about it. Oh, they're due today, they're due today. Okay, I got to get this done. So last night I'm thinking about it, like, okay, how do I organize my notes, and how do I do this and this and this? And I'm telling myself, and I'm making these lists in my brain. But this morning I wake up and I think, okay, I got to get this done, and what I got to do A, B, C, D first before I can sit down to actually focus. I'm like getting stressed out, and I'm trying to race home to get it done. And so during that process, my automatic go-to is going to be feeling anxious, and might be feeling sad because I just thought of something, like I thought of my brother, or I thought of my dad that I lost, you know, like, and then I start to feel sad and I start to feel that grief again, right? And it gets really heavy. Sometimes it's hard to let go of those, and basically we're hooked, like the term, I'm going to use this in a different manner, catching feelings, right? A lot of you know catching feelings in a totally different sense, but think about it as in like you're getting hooked, like you're the fish, and these feelings and emotions are on this, like this hook, right? And that hook's got you, right? And so it's hard to let go of those emotions and those feelings, and you're just stuck there. So just thinking about that, and thinking about stress and how that affects you. Others might have some physical reactions like skin rashes, infections, or some of you might experience some stomach issues. And so being aware of that is really important. And so if you take a look at the presentation right there, I like to use this. Let me take this thing out of my way. I like to use this visual when talking about, you know, self-assessment, because self-assessment is very important. Now, looking at this visual, I include in the middle is, of course, yourself. But around us, I like to include the medicine wheel. I know a lot of us have different medicine wheels. We have different philosophies within each tribe. But it's really important to understand that, you know, the core part of us, you know, the intellectual, the spiritual, the emotional, the physical part of us, that they're all intertwined and they all work together. So when, I know a lot of you know this, if you've grown up in that way, you know, if my spirituality is lacking, it might affect me emotionally, might affect me physically. And so understanding that one piece is working and simultaneously with all these other areas. So when I'm looking at this, I think about my self-assessment. So when I get up in the morning, I'm saying my prayer, you know, I'm telling myself, you know, some of these positive intentions that I hope to do throughout the day. And with that, I'm also taking an inventory about, you know, how am I doing physically? How am I doing intellectually, spiritually, emotionally. And then I also look at the outside. So if you look at the very outside of that circle, you know, there's the social part of me, and that involves the people who are around me. That might include friends, mentors, family, and supports. The other part is financially, and there's so many studies that show that the financial implications can impact our mental health dramatically. And so if my finances, or if I'm hurting financially, that might be an indicator that, hey, I'm experiencing a lot of stress due to finances. Or I had, you know, I'll use this person as an example who gravitated towards, I guess, seeking out financial opportunities because of the love of money. And so that caused a great amount of stress. And that person was doing many different jobs and trying to write many different scholarships and trying to stay on top of meeting all these requirements that basically burned him out like he could not imagine. And he finally realized that when, you know, he had to go to the hospital. So, you know, that financial piece can come in many different forms. It just is not like having no finances, but it's sticking out a lot of financial opportunities that it gets you sick. Environmental, you know, we all experience environmental stressors, whether that's being in a home that's not, you know, up to par, or maybe it's something like living with individuals who are constantly partying, or living with toxic individuals who are not living in the right headspace, or, you know, experiencing a lot of gossip. Occupational, you know, what are the stressors that you experience in your job? If you have a part-time job when you're going to school, that in itself can cause a lot of stress. But, you know, the workplace is the workplace, and there's a lot of things that are happening there, as well as, you know, it's just like a family. And so they have the different dynamics, and you can experience those different stressors. But that can also include occupational and intellectual, you know, both of those areas. You know, there might be some presentations, there might be some times when you have to go up in front of the class or in front of the public and speak. And so that might cause a lot of stress, because you have to prepare and you have to practice. And if you don't do that, you know, what is the result? And that can cause a lot of stress, right? So I like to go through this, and I use this as a self-assessment. And so you can take a picture of it, and you can draw it out on your notebook and write down, you know, what I like to do is I write down, you know, one area that I really want to focus on. Is that the physical area? You know, I've been doing a lot of different things these past weeks, and I kind of fell off going to the gym and, you know, doing my usual routine. And so that's one area that is like, it's in red and it's like beeping at me. And I got to get back over there and work on my physical health. And so that's an example. But I would also like to open it up to you all, or in the chat. And, you know, we're talking about midterms right now. We're talking about, you know, the middle of towards the end of October, season is changing. That might be higher bills for our heat. It might be having to buy costumes or presents for the kids, or it might be presentations, midterm presentations. What are some examples, and what do you currently experience in terms of stress? You can come off mute or you can put in the chat. I don't mind. I see that one person, Marcella, put in there, that was me in class yesterday. I started crying during a presentation in class. Yeah, I know that was a response to earlier what I was talking about, but that's kind of an example too. Schoolwork, yeah, very stressful. School and multiple blocks of assignments all due on the same day. Oh, I remember that. Walking in both worlds of culture and the modern day requirements. Yes. And that can be very stressful if you have a commitment to ceremony and you're a lead in the ceremonial processes. I know that I have a lot of friends and family who are in those roles, and they have to abide by certain times of the year, and so they will always tell us, I'm not available for that. I'm not available. I'm not available. And so going to school and also having those roles is very difficult, but they manage to manage all of those. And that's one good point, culture in the modern day requirements. And that's the reason why I have you introduce yourself in the beginning, because a lot of the times, we come into these different spaces and we hear introductions, but to hear it in our native language and to hear it in other native languages, that's really empowering and it's really amazing to hear. And so that's one of the reasons why I have you introduce yourself. It's so beautiful to hear too. I love hearing all the other languages. Personal life, interviewing with school life, health problems, financial problems, auto theft. Sorry, there's something covering this. Children's well-being. Those are real life. Yeah. Stressed out looking for a job and trying to be there for my family and church functions. Let's see. I'm on call this week, the mental health crisis team, and got called for a crisis situation. Lucky I got home in time for introductions. Cool. Well, you helped someone and then you just came home and jumped on here. That's awesome. Midterms and internships are stressful right now, as well as financial. Yeah. And I will tell you all that, I've been a student and I've been in those financial situations where I just wanted to go to work, right? And I took a year off and I went to work and I was still in the same place. And I told myself, this is not worth quitting school, because I'll share with you, education. And I was always pushed to go to do something and get an education, right? Because I think a lot of the times, looking at social justice and looking at Indian country across the board, there's so little, there's such low numbers in terms of the percentage of individuals that graduate from college. And so, looking at where you all are and you had a choice and you went to school and you're getting an education, I just see that as, you're arming yourself and you're shielding yourself with something, be it the diploma, and you're getting that education. And it's going to help you. It's going to help you to fight some of these things that you're seeing, that you're writing down. It's going to help you in the long run overcome some of these financial burdens, or you're going to look back at this and be like, man, I was so stressed out in midterms, and I was so stressed out in getting my internship, and standing up for myself when I needed to in my internship because of racism. And I overcame some of these situations with my family. And I'm able to provide for my children. So in a way, I think that, sometimes we do experience stress because it helps us to understand that we need to fight and we need to strive to make a difference in our life, right? And that's where, you know, you were talking about positive and negative stressors. And sometimes I do view some of these as positive in terms of how I need to propel myself into another space, or propel myself and arm myself with a career and a diploma so that I'm able to provide and I'm able to pass down these things to the future generation, right? And that's one thing that I'm a big and huge advocate for. And a lot of the times, stress, be it negative, is basically a tool that's utilized for us to be like, hey, this ain't right. Like, do something about this, you know? And it's in our face and it's blaring. Do something, do something. And so that's kind of what I see education as, is like, okay, I'm slowly taking a step day by day, right? It seems so slow, but I'm doing it and I'm gonna make something better for myself. But in terms of stress and how you handle it for today and how you cope today is only going to help you take that next step tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. And so we're going to go into that a little bit more of, you know, how you manage your stress. But thank you for sharing your thoughts in the chat. Would anybody else like to come off mute and provide some examples? If
I
not,
will.
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi.
Hi.
So this semester has been very stressful for me because a few weeks back I was diagnosed with cancer, thyroid cancer, and then I had to have
Mhm.
surgery. And then like on top of all that, I'm like having to do school. So it's like
Mhm.
it's just very stressful. And I don't know. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry to hear that. That must be tremendously stressful. Um, how have you been? Yeah, do you have a counselor that you can talk to? I know that's something that's huge, right? It's something that we never want to hear when we go to the doctor's office. We never want to hear that about ourselves or our loved ones, but you know, you have to take the time to process that. And looking back at this wheel, you know, emotional part of us is huge when we think about mental health and how that affects and impacts our body. It's really important that you talk to someone or at least find a support group or, you know, someone that you can lean on. And I'm hoping you have that.
Yeah, I'm working with a counselor right now. She's really good at
Oh,
helping me and like reaching out to my instructors, and they're all like very supportive because they're all in the social work field. So they're like, it's okay, like this is what we do, like you don't have to worry, and it makes me feel better.
okay, good. That's good. Yeah, that's so tough to deal with, but yeah, I'm seeing all the encouraging words in the chat. You know, keep your head up and prayers for positive healing. And you know what you need to do for yourself. And it sounds like you have a good support system. So that's amazing. So I'm glad you shared that. And that's part of the process, right? Is sharing those words. If it's all bottled up in here, you're sharing that information and crying is okay. I know a lot of us come from backgrounds where, you know, you get scolded, you know, don't cry, you're not supposed to cry. But I was just in Wisconsin last week and I was working with the Red Cliff and of Lake Superior Chippewa, and there was one thing that I took away from there, and he was saying that, you know, when you cry, you know, your tears come down and they taste like salt, right? And he's saying that, you know, their belief is that if you don't cry, you know, you bottle up that salt inside you and you get sick, you know, and you start to experience some of these reactions. And so, you know, that makes me think about some of those things. You know, so crying is okay. And sometimes we need to let out that emotion and cry. Anybody else want to share? Thank you for sharing. Anybody else like to share? Okay, we will move into the next part, but yes, positive thoughts and prayers. And thank you for sharing. Let's see. So we're going to go into some of those self-care. How do we manage self-care? And I talked about this more. I talked about this when I was showing that little diagram with the medicine wheel in the middle. And this goes into more detail about the 8 dimensions of wellness. And in order for us to take care of ourselves and protecting our well-being and protecting our happiness, we have to be able to look at each one of these areas within ourselves and make sure that we're practicing healthy ways, basically, right? So again, like what I just said with the self-assessment, looking at each of these areas, identifying, am I practicing wellness in this area? Am I practicing, I can't even get my words out. Am I practicing good ways, good thoughts, and socially? What does that look like? Am I practicing, you know, my spirituality? What does that look like? Do I need to work on that? I know some of us might be conflicted because we live in those 2 worlds. We might be raised in 2 different faiths. And how am I managing that? Intellectually, physically, environmentally, do I need to make some changes? Financially, I know some of us can't help, you know, some of our financial issues. And so is it seeking out resources? Is it writing up a budget and abiding by it and practicing that self-control? And speaking of self-control, you know, what King wrote in the chat, making time for it. And that's practicing self-control, because you have to abide by a certain time limit, right? A certain time schedule. If we don't have time, if we don't put time specifically for it, self-care gets pushed to the side very easily. It's very true. And yeah, family and friends, which can fit into socially or social part of us. That's a huge part in some of our lives, right? Friends, family. You know, if we're constantly running around for our family because they need help, I'm hearing that right now with my daughter's friends. You know, I have 21-year-old who goes to Fort Lewis, and she has her friend who needs to go home, you know, 4-hour drive to help family. And that's taking up some time. Yes, it's good to be there, but it's taking up a lot of time. Or maybe you're trying to make friends and trying to keep friends, and you're doing too much for them, and it's taking away from your study time. It's taking away from your mental health. And sometimes that can get us in trouble if we're practicing substance use. That can impact us dramatically in all of these areas. And so taking some time to really sit down and look at these areas, identifying some of those positive and negatives, identifying, you know, how to, some solutions, being solution focused and taking it from a lens that's strength based and not just beating down on yourself. Because that's not going to help anyone, but you know, also being, I know this sounds weird, but being true but not beating down on yourself and putting information that that's feasible within this plan of action that you want to create. Shauna, I really was never taught about self-care. I finally learned how to set boundaries with my family and to hold people accountable. I've learned now that it's okay to not solve everyone's problem, especially my family, yes. And some of those family issues, they run deep. And it takes professionals and it takes individuals who might not be in your family to assist. Because a lot of the times, like I have a brother who I've tried to help for years and I couldn't do anything. And I was just spinning my wheels trying to help this individual deal with substances, and there's nothing I could do. So understanding that you have to have boundaries to care for yourself and to make sure you're well, that's a huge thing in life. It'll help you in the long run. Okay, 8 dimensions of wellness. Take note of that. And there's resources I'll link at the end that go into these dimensions a little bit further and explain it and kind of like flesh it out for you in more detail. So I'll include that. Let's go to the next slide. So tell me, how do you practice self-care to manage stress during midterms? How do you practice self-care to manage stress during midterms? I'm trying to think of what I did when I was
I like to watch TV and check out, like, just not think about the stuff for a while, even if it's like a half an hour or something. Just, okay, brain's needs a break, and just zone out on TV for a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes when I'm on the road and I'm presenting, like we're on task all day, I like to go back and just like turn on some junk TV. I like to call it junk TV. It's like, I don't even know what I'm watching. I'm watching like some K-drama that's like, or it's something strange, some reality show. Yeah, I totally understand. I can relate with you. Awesome. So, coping by diverting your attention to something positive for a little bit, right? I see in the chat, stress during midterms. Ooh, man, I'd say TV too. And this is where the positive and the negative can come into play, right? Positive being taking some time out to partake in getting your mind off something. But if you spend too much time watching TV and you have a schedule to abide by, right? I'm saying a schedule in terms of time management. And you go over that and you're sitting there for like 2.5 hours and you're like, oh no, what time is it? Right? I lost track of time. So that could be a negative-ish. Sorry, I'm trying to get back to the chats. Spreading out the load of deadlines, yeah. Breathing exercise, being in the woods, praying, offering tobacco, yes, smudging, awesome. Yes, those are always good. Being in the woods, I was by the lake last week and just taking in the environment, the air, the smell, the trees, the water, taking time to, I want to say, build your relationship with the environment. Because, we have water beings, we have the plant beings, we have air, we have all the beings around us. So having that relationship and that we have that relationship with each other. So taking the time out and talking with them and listening to them is really important to me. And that's kind of what I like to do when I'm out in nature. Going for walks and exercising, yes, that's very important. Taking a 15-minute walk, homework, listening to podcasts and working out. I take a walk and listen to music, or my husband listening to me, karaoke. Working out is a good stress reliever, yes. Especially if you're experiencing those emotions of anger, right? And we're starting to act out on feeling that stress. I think going in the gym and working out and expressing that anger, that's a really helpful thing for whatever you want to do to express your anger. That's kind of what came to my mind. I do video study buddy with classmates, big time smudging. Yeah, study buddies, or maybe just getting on the phone and talking to somebody who can relate, right? Talking to a friend or a family member, maybe like my sister, or someone who can take the time out with you to study. That's also really important. Exercising is a good one. Exerting some of that pent up, sometimes overwhelming stress. Yep. And staying organized. Yes. Organization is very important. And it goes into preparation. Preparation is key. If you're prepared and organized, that's great. I actually take all social media off my phone that week. I really concentrate on what I feed my mind emotionally, physically, and spiritually. That's really important. Yeah, because what you see on social media and the news can really cause some anxiety. It can cause some depression. It can just throw you off everywhere. I think that's really important to be aware of. Awesome. Thank you all for your input. Does anybody else have anything? If you want to come off mute, that's good too. Anybody else? Reminding yourself about the end goal as well. Social media, taking breaks from it. Yep. I fall into that trap too. Social media. I could sit here and scroll on TikTok and look at all these recipes and all these crafts. I'll be like an hour later. I like to sing songs and dance, whether it be tradition or not. Awesome. That's cool. Nice. It's really important to also look at the type of music that you're listening to. That's kind of indicator of how I'm feeling as well. And so I kind of have to change up my music. Who else is there? Drawing, painting, sketching. Yep. Sometimes painting is really helpful, you know, finding some sort of craft. That's helpful for me too. Bob Marley helps as well. Yeah. I enjoy cooking sometimes. It kind of like helps me to zone out. I don't know what it is, but you know, it's taking that mindful approach and just listening to the cutting board. And you know, all my senses are involved. And so when I throw in the onions or whatnot, you know, I can smell and hear it. And then looking at the end result, yes, I get to sit down and eat some good food and just, you know, chill. That's kind of what I experience when cooking. Cool. I'm glad you guys have some tools under your belt. I'm sure you all do. But it's just basically finding what works for you. So take some time and again, take this image, write it on your notebook, and write some ways to cope in each area, or maybe some to-do things that you need to focus on. Like I was saying, maybe you don't have many supports, and starting to identify who are your supports? Is it friends, families? Is it your roommate? Is it your professor? Who can you reach out to in times of need? I know we all experience some emotional, mental health issues, and we need to talk to someone. And who is that in your life? Developing those healthy relationships is really important, especially when you're feeling really hopeless and we don't want to go there, but sometimes we do, right? Sometimes we think about thoughts of suicide, but we need to know that there are supports out there. There are resources out there. 988, dialing that phone number, 988, if you're in a place that, you know, you can dial that number. Some of the times they'll reroute you to a bigger city if you're in a rural area. But knowing and understanding that there are behavioral health clinics, you know, all IHS places have a urgent care or a clinic that you can go to, and they have behavioral health, mental health specialists there. So understanding that you have resources, you can reach out to people. There is help and you're not alone. Understanding that is really, really important. Because I don't want you to go through this and be stressed out and feel like there's nowhere to turn. If you have questions or anything related to mental health, you can reach out to one of your coaches. And I know that you have specific coaches that you can reach out to, or putting in your survey. We're going to be taking a survey and maybe putting down that you need additional resources. That can be helpful. Have to prepare for a snowstorm. Thank you for having me, and I hope you all have a great day, and I wish you all the best of luck. Thank you for being here, Bentley. We really appreciate you being here. Okay, let's move on. So I did this the last time and having an open discussion about, you know, how we were taught about stress management growing up. Some of us were taught, some of us weren't taught, some of us we learned by trial and error, right? Because we were the adult in the family, and we were trying to make things happen when mom and dad couldn't. But we also had, you know, our grandparents, and we also have social media. So what have elders taught you about stress management? Maybe you can share a little bit. Or what have your parents taught you about stress management? What has social media taught you about stress management? Or just overall, what makes you strong? So if you'd like to share, and then we'll go into a small activity. What did your elders or your community teach you about stress management?
When I was young, my grandma told me that the traditional Dakota way was when, I don't know why I think about this right now, but like when other people are trying to stress you out, it's usually because there's something bothering them. And so to pray for them and I don't know. So I think about that when I think about stress management. I guess to apply that to yourself would just be, you know, sit down and be honest with yourself about what it is stressing you out. You know, a lot of times we kind of lie to ourselves and like, it's not bothering me, it's not a big deal, but it's obviously causing us anxiety, you know? Like with my older kids, I ask them, you know, what's going on? And they'll hesitate for a second and say, nothing. I'm like, okay, what was the first thing you thought of though? Just tell me, you know?
I don't know. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Honesty is really important, especially when you're looking at yourself, you're doing that self-assessment and being honest and open with yourself. That's where you're going to find that you need to accept some of the things that you've been doing or some of the things that you need to do, right? And let's see, I was raised by my grandparents. Watching them go to work every day and being sober has helped me live sober and healthy, being healthy as I grow older. Yeah, that's a great example. Once you're starting to become more aware of who you are, or you're going to therapy, or you're practicing all these good ways, you start to understand that the only person that I control is myself, right? And so, what are the choices that I'm making? Are they going to benefit me, or are they going to cause me some trouble or some harm? And so, I really like what you said about, taking control of yourself, and that the way you react to anything, you have a choice of how you react. So thank you for sharing that. I saw a big long chat here. To be patient and listen to nature's surroundings, the wind, the trees, water, birds, anything of nature. It relaxes me. Feels good to be in an area where I know our ancestors were, and it makes me think of the way they would do and how they use all resources around them for their self-care. My old OQ teacher taught me to keep at it, even if it's just a little tiny bit at a time, consistency with things rather than taking it all out at once. No instant gratification. Oh, you said OJIB teacher. Okay, awesome. Great, those are awesome. Thank you for sharing all of that. Being able to openly express myself to my parents, my stresses, because I have played different roles, daughter, mother, and scholar, is key. I support my parents with shelter, my daughter, and work full-time in addition to schooling. I try to unlearn doing it all and pace myself with any daily task. Yeah, that can be really stressful. And being open and honest in terms of expectations, I think, is really important when it comes to friends and family, and stating, what expectations they have of you and what you can honestly provide or what you can honestly do, and developing those healthy boundaries, healthy communication, and laying that out all out on the table. I think that's really important. Awesome, you're doing a great job. So I'm going to move into a brief activity. Let me stop sharing. Oh wait, actually I wanted to share that last page. Resources, basic information. Let me read this last one. My parents and elders would say, go take a hike or a ride, and also go pray. Yep, our elders would tell us, right? They would say, go do this, go pray, go, cook or make some tortillas. They always knew what to do. But mostly they would say, go walk, go run, right? For my grandparents, they would say, don't lay around, go run, go outside and go do the chores, because they knew that cleanliness, organization, being active, partaking in something was beneficial for us, right? They all knew. Awesome. I thank you all for sharing. Here's the resources, some more information on what I shared in previous sessions. There's a good book called Breaking Through Depression, kind of goes into more of the scientific findings. And then You Happier, again, goes into the brain and how it works, and what you can do for yourself. And then Self-Care Plan, that's awesome. You can look at that and develop your own self-care plan. But sometimes we do need that extra help, right? We do need those Western tools that will help us to put it on paper. And then the last one, Doing What Matters in Time of Stress. It's like a workbook, so it gives you ideas, and it goes through kind of like some of these terms that I use, like hooking, hooked, being hooked, And also like grounding tool to let go of some of these emotions or just to come back to center yourself, I guess you could say. I'm going to do 2 of these activities. I've heard them in various places and spaces throughout the years. And it's actually in this Doing What Matters in Time of Stress booklet. It's a gigantic booklet that talks about stress, and it's really helpful. So I would, out of all of those, I would choose Doing What Matters in Time of Stress. Copy it, search it, and use that resource because it's really helpful. I'm going to stop sharing and we can go through this brief activity, and I will share the survey in the chat and talk about the next meeting. And so this is a grounding activity. It's easy. You can talk yourself through it. You just got to think about these few little words: 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And so sometimes, we'll get angry or we'll get anxious, and we need to focus and we need to calm ourselves down, right? And so having this tool 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 will help us to really calm down and to become centered and grounded. So this is a grounding exercise. So 5, identify 5 things that are around you that you can see. So like I'm like super frustrated and I'm like on the verge of getting mad, right? Or I am mad and I'm like, okay, I need to calm down. How do I calm down? And so this activity is going to help with grounding. So 5, so identifying 5 things. 1, calendar. 2, a book. 3, the door. 4, the light switch. 5, the backpack, right? And then going into 4, reach out and touching 4 things. Maybe that's a pen. 1, the phone. 2, 3, laptop. 4, table. And then moving into 3, identifying 3 things you hear. 1, fan. 2, the TV. 3, hearing myself talk. Right. And then you move into 2. What are 2 things you can smell? 1, it might be cooking, something cooking. 2 could be something outside. Sorry, I can't really smell it now. And then 1 thing that you taste. And maybe you have gum or something, or just using your senses. And so that's basically what this is using all of these senses to basically come back down. It's really good for self-awareness. And so that'll help you to identify, like, okay, everything will be okay. Let's start from ground zero. And what do we need to do now, right? Instead of overreacting or going overboard with our anger or just hanging on to all of those emotions. That's helpful. The other one I like to use, and I've used before with individuals who are experiencing anxiety attacks, is going through, again, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But this is more of, if you can sit more like by a window or maybe stepping outside, this will be helpful. If I'm going to step outside, I'm talking to myself, or I'm talking to someone else. Like, okay, you're experiencing this anxiety, like breathe. So take a deep breath. And then find the furthest object that you can see. And I'm going to go for the mountain right there. So I'm going to focus on it and take a deep breath. And then I'm going to come a little bit closer. So that's 5, right? and I'm going to focus on, say, I don't know, a tree, right? That's kind of a little bit lower, but it's coming closer to me. So I'm going to focus on the tree. So that's 4, but I'm going to take a deep breath and then release. And then I'm coming a little bit closer, and it might be a fence. So that's 3. And I'm going to look at that fence, and I'm going to say, you know, it's there. It's right near me. Okay, the fence. Okay. And I'm going to take a deep breath, and I'm going to let it out. And then I'm going to identify another object that's a little bit closer. And it might be like something like a flower or a plant that's nearby. And I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to focus on it, and I'm going to take a deep breath. But I'm going to let it out, but I'm still going to focus on that object and know that it's coming closer. And then I'm going to look at something that's like right in front of me. Maybe it's a sidewalk, maybe it's a rug, but I'm going to stare at it, and I'm going to breathe in. And I'm just going to focus, you know, and when you're focusing on these objects, taking in like color, what is there, and really getting your mind off of what is happening first, right? And coming down from whatever it is, your anxiety. It really help to come down off of anxiety, or to refocus your thoughts if you have depression, or, you know, of course, if it's anger, coming back down from anger. And that way it helps you to think clearly and make better decisions, so that you're not just acting off of these emotional responses. So those were the activities, and I hope those were helpful. Again, they're in the resource. If you Google that resource, it'll help you out. But those are very simple exercise that you can use, and they work. I use the one where I'm focusing on the mountain and I'm coming closer, because I have experienced anxiety, and that is really helpful for me. So I can stop freaking out and just focus. I'm going to include the survey link in the chat, and I want to remind you all that the next meeting time is going to be on Monday, November 13th, and that's going to be with me again. We're going to go through more of talking about stress management, and talking about other, you know, things that we can do for stress management. But I will put the link in the chat. Take the time to do the survey. I know American Indian College Fund relies heavily on your input and making sure that we're providing the right and accurate resources and information to you, so that it's helpful for you to be successful in what you're doing. And I encourage you all to continue to strive for your career, your success, your goals, your future, because you all are making a positive choice. And I say this again, but we all made this positive choice, and we do have a choice as Indigenous peoples who've been stripped of so many different things, that we now have the choice to get an education. We have the choice to be successful. We have the choice to make something of ourselves. And so you're doing it. I wish you all the best of luck, and I wish you all great success. And yeah, take the survey. So if you already took it, you're welcome to jump off. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your voice and being in our presence. So yeah, and have a good night.